All right, it looks like we're live. So, hi everybody. Happy Saturday. Oh my gosh, I had to think way too hard about what day it was for a second. But so I'm here today with Jessie and Lida, who are two lovely female physician colleagues and also coaches. And so we're going to chat a little bit about burnout, which I've been kind of putting out a few prompts on this week. So Lida is a peak performance coach for physicians, and she uses insight and spirituality and freedom from fear in her coaching. And then Jessie's a mindful coach for physicians and parents, and she has a business which she'll tell us more about, which is called Pause and Presence Coaching. Am I right about that? Yes. Okay. I couldn't read my writing for a second.
All good.
I've been coached by Jessie, and she's amazing. So I'm really excited to have her here. Very, very excited. And you guys all know me by now. I'm Anna, and I coach female MDs to beat all of the common female MD mind traps that keep us stuck in things like burnout and imposter syndrome and perfectionism, so that we can all really love the lives that we've worked our butts off to earn. So you guys know how to reach me. I just always like to mention, if you're a female doctor and you're not in my Facebook group, the link is in my bio. It's called Anti-Fragile Female Physicians. Please do come and join us. We run free challenges. It's lots of fun. It's my way of giving back to the female physician community, and I'd love to have you there. And I'm going to be opening enrollment for the next round, the fall round of my coaching program soon. So if you want notifications about that, you can either message me with your email, or you can go on the antifragilemd.com. There's no V, it's just antifragilemd.com. And you can sign up for my email list. You'll get a little free gift ebook there right now too. And you can find out more about the next round of the program. Getting an awful lot of weird sounds in the background. I don't know what that is.
It sounds very staticky. Is that? Oh, it's gone.
Yeah. Okay.
I can hear it.
That's so strange. I wonder if that's my camera. It's really, really weird.
Sounds like Rice Krispies.
Yeah.
I'm mindful of it. But
that is so odd. I can't figure out if it's coming from my. Weird. Oh, it's gone. Weird. It's okay, Lida. Just you can just turn yours on maybe when you talk, and then we won't hear it the whole time. So, okay, so let's jump.
Perfect.
We'll see if it's any better. Okay, so burnout, and all three of us are female physicians, but as we are well aware, and certainly, it's still there. Oh, maybe it's better now. Anyway, as we're aware, lots of people experience burnout. It's certainly not something that's unique to female physicians by any means. And so, I think this is really applicable to anybody, and I hope you guys will get something from this. Feel free to type us some questions in the comments, because we'll happily interact that way as well. So my personal philosophy that's come from my own experiences with burnout and coaching people through burnout is that burnout often comes from the way, or at least it's contributed to in large part by the way we're looking at our world. And so there's these components of burnout that have to do with depersonalization and emotional exhaustion and feeling ineffective. But a large part of this is an inside job. And so when we talk about mindful approaches to burnout, we're going to share a lot of that with you about how we can work on those parts of ourselves and really getting to the bottom of what's creating that experience for us in the world. And I like to think of this as there's negative emotion fueling my desire to work when I'm in burnout. And so, what I see a lot in the female physicians, and I think this is probably common in a lot of groups too, is this kind of big five of fear, obligation, guilt, anxiety, and overwhelm. And these seem to be super, super, super common amongst people who are experiencing burnout. And I think that, in large part, what we want to identify when we're becoming more mindful about what's contributing to burnout for us is what thoughts are creating our emotions or fueling our emotions, fueling our desire to work. So I'm going to kind of ask these two lovely ladies to share a little bit maybe about whether you've had any personal experiences with burnout, what your experience has been as a coach, and just a little bit more about what you do. And then we'll kind of jump into our approaches for dealing with this. You guys can start, whichever one of you wants to start. Just go ahead and jump in.
I can go first. Go ahead.
What, say again? I can hear you. Yeah, we've still got the Rice Krispies, but I can hear you.
I wonder what that is. Do you want to go first, Lida, or why don't I go first, and then you can maybe mute the Rice Krispies, and then when you're ready, you can talk. It's perfect, actually, as a practice for mindfulness, right? It's like muting all the things at work that when you're burnt out are driving you crazy. So as I think about it, it's the perfect exercise. So my name is Jessie Mahoney, and I may or may not know many of you. And I am I like to say a mindful physician coach, because I coach from, through sort of standard coaching and thought models and all of that, but I absolutely incorporate mindfulness into it. And as many of you know, I'm also a yoga teacher. And to me, a huge piece of the coaching comes down to pausing and being present and noticing and being aware of what's going on. And we can't make changes until we are able to do that. And so I got into coaching actually probably from a place of burnout, and I imagine that many of the physician coaches did. Interestingly, I have been working in physician wellness my whole 18-year career in medicine, and so I was quite surprised that I ended up burned out also, because I was the wellness champion and was leading everyone else's wellness. And in many respects, I was well, and I spent a lot of time doing wellness retreats and all of that. But I also found that working on that and some of the frustrations within the system made it even more frustrating. So I felt like I was pushing boulders up the hill all the time. And I came to burnout, I think, I think all physicians come to burnout at some point in their career. One of the interesting things about burnout is that we used to say in my work, oh, that person's burnt out, like they had done something wrong. And I think nobody has done anything wrong, and nobody's broken, and nobody really even needs fixing. It's, to me, part of the natural course of medicine and the work that we do. It's super hard work. And so I would just encourage you that if you do feel burnt out, to know that it's normal and we all feel that way, and that there are solutions. I think when you're in the midst of burnout, there's so much overwhelm and so much self-judgment and criticism. And it is really a mindset problem. It's not that the system isn't broken. I don't want to blame anyone for, feeling challenged and overwhelmed, but it's sort of like when we put ourselves first and we put our own oxygen mask first in the face of burnout, that's where we can be part of the solution for ourselves and part of the solution for the system. And I used to work with a lot of physicians who just felt very frustrated because they thought, well, if I meditate, they tell me I'll feel better. If I go to yoga, I'll feel better. And there are all these other things that need to be fixed. And it's a combination of all of them, right? The system needs to be fixed, but we also need to show up in a way that serves us. And I like to think of it as something for us. So we're not doing it for anyone else. We're doing it because it's better for us. And when we are able to take care of ourselves, then we can take care of our children, our families, our patients, and the world, and just show up in a different way. So that's, I guess, my thoughts on burnout. I'm sure I have more, but just to start, why don't you go ahead, Lida?
Don't worry, I'll find some more. I don't know, just because of this mic thing, a few people have said some comments. Let's just all try pausing in between.
Do you want me to try muting?
Yeah, sorry, muting is what I meant. Yeah, I think there might be some feedback from the mics in between when one person is talking. So we'll try to, there could be a delay or something. Oh, we lost Lida. It could be her connection too. So, okay, well, maybe we'll just keep talking for a few minutes and then hopefully she can get her connection sorted out and jump back on. So I love, Jessie, what you were talking about, really, because I totally agree with you. Like, I think, I know there's a lot of concern amongst the physician group about how burnout really, the terminology sometimes makes physicians feel like the problem is with us. And I think that it's possible to also draw that conclusion from some of the work that we're doing with clients, right? When we're asking them to take a look at their thoughts or the filter with which they're seeing their world. But at the same time, the way I sort of look at it is that we've spent a lot of time really looking at and thinking about these sort of systemic issues. Oh, it's still there. Do you want to just mute yourself for a minute, and then I'll in a second we'll bring you. If you just hit mute, I don't think I can. Oh, maybe I can mute you. Okay, there we go. I can. I'll mute you in between. Oh, weird. Okay, there we go. It's good for now. Okay, I'll turn you back on in a second, and then you can tell us about your own experiences. But I think, I think really what the way I see it is this, is that as long as we maintain the belief that it's all the systemic factors and we don't look at the way in which we're interpreting that information, we miss the opportunity for us to change what we can change first, which is ourselves and the way we feel. And then when we come from this place where we feel like we have our power back and our ability to start to conquer some of these things, we're experiencing that positive emotion, and it gives us the ability to start to tackle those big rocks in medicine and the things that we all know needs to change, right? But it's really hard to change that from this place of oppression or apathy or this emotional exhaustion and all of that piece of things. So anyway, I'm gonna shut up for a second here, Lida, and I want you to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Lida Fatemi. I'm an academic hospitalist at University of New Mexico. And throughout my journey here, I was a chief resident. I was very involved with the resident union here back in the day, and I saw a lot of burnout. I saw a lot of it, but I wasn't very in tune with it until my chief year. Then chief year came along, and I was, in charge of so many of my coworkers, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a real problem. And so I started researching about it. And this was about 5 years ago, when the information wasn't really, it wasn't, we have a movement now to look at it and understand it and move forward with it. And back then there wasn't such a thing. So I brought it up to my leadership. And since then, it's just become a passion of mine to understand it, to understand why is it that we're in such a bad place, in healthcare as a whole. And then, you come down to the units of the healthcare system, which is the physician, and as units and the atomic units of the healthcare system, we within ourselves, we have so much struggle, even understanding that, yes, self-care is necessary, and we feel so judged by ourselves. We feel guilty when we are even conscious of, oh, I need a minute here, I need time to myself. I need, Erica Lowe was talking about the power hour, that I need, that time to really rejuvenate myself. And so that's become my own, my passion. And personally, I went through burnout, just like all of us, it's just part of our journey as humans, I would say, and especially in medicine, because, I see us as executives on a team, and executives have a lot of support. And as physicians, we have none. We're just by ourselves, and we have to figure it out, and as you guys are talking about the perfectionism and, all of those things that we are just, the type A personalities that we come into this world with, we have a hard time asking for help. We have a hard time delegating and all that. So through my own very, torturous journey of burnout, You know, I have a 12-year-old. I've been divorced. I'm remarried. I'm 8.5 months, almost 9 months pregnant, and my life is very full and beautiful and rich. And through my journey, I have come to the realization that the key for me and for a lot of my colleagues is to be conscious of the decisions that we make, and every decision that we make, you know, it be like when I go to bed at night, when I wake up in the morning, what do I choose to do, what, you know, routines I choose to have in my life that either enhance me or not, the thoughts that I choose to develop in my head or not, or, you know, meditate and then try to be, you know, as Jessie says, you know, pause. I love that. And I use stillness in my coaching practice to let things, you know, flow through, and accept. It's okay to feel a little agitated sometimes. When we try to resist it, I find it to be a lot more spiraling instead of uplifting, you know. But being conscious as a conscious physician, that's really my biggest thing. And then fear, I see so much fear in our profession of we also fear monger each other, you know, and that's a really sad thing in medicine, you know. And I love being part of this group because we are all empowering each other all the time, and it's absolutely beautiful. Like what you're doing right now, Anna, is awesome. Bringing all of us together, talk about it, you know, even promote ourselves. It's like this is the way. And I'm seeing more and more of that dream healthcare system come to fruition because we're doing things like this. But fear tends to hold us back so much and get us stuck in certain mindsets that I help my clients get through that through you know, I do a combination of things. I don't believe that one fits all. Certain things work better for people and certain things don't. But I have, you know, certain habit formations that help people with positive psychology, appreciative inquiry, and, you know, I integrate those things together with my clients, and I've had pretty good success. You know, I've had clients who've been at the verge of suicide, and they're now living very fulfilling lives, thankfully. I've had clients who've been, you know, super anxious, just cannot get their life together, and they just live in this chaos, you know, from past trauma. And I don't focus on that. You know, we know coaching is about, you know, what is going on now, and how can we work together to get you through. So that's just the gist of it, and I don't want to take more time.
Let me unmute myself here. Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's so great. And I mean, I can't agree with you more. I think, you know, part of the reason why I believe in bringing other kind of coaches into my world is that I have seen the benefit of coaching for anybody who has decided to take this foray, right? And I really think that, like, whoever needs a coach, if there's somebody they resonate with, like, that's the perfect coach for them in that moment. And so, yes, I absolutely believe in all of us working together and, you know, sharing the stuff that has really helped us too, right? I have my own story of, you know, overcoming feeling suicidal and completely burned out, and coaching was my vehicle for getting to where I am now. And so I think this is a great segue into just talking about like one of the 4 elements that I really see kind of coming up time and time again in burnout is this kind of idea of stressful thoughts that are creating negative emotions for us. And so I mentioned before this kind of, I call it fog A, but this fear, obligation, guilt, and anxiety. And then I think there's this overwhelm piece. And so I would love really just if you guys would share if you have any specific approaches for, I can talk to you about how I tend to help my clients start to dive into the idea of looking at those emotions. Lida, you kind of talked about that a little bit when you were speaking about how starting to understand that these are a normal part of human life. So Jessie, do you want to jump in and sort of share how you approach this?
Sure. Just trying to unmute myself. for me, I think it's noticing the emotions first. So people are often completely unaware that they're overwhelmed by fear, anxiety. They may say, I have fear and anxiety, but they don't really notice how it's impacting things. They don't really notice when it pops up. And what they really don't notice is what thoughts are causing those feelings. And so that's where I think, and that's probably where the pause and presence, it comes from many, many different things, but it's a piece there where if you pause and you're present with whatever the emotion is, even if it's bad, you can start to figure out where it's coming from, and then you can start to change it. And so I think when you feel, so many docs feel, I wrote down your FOGA, I guess you call it, but fear. For me, I would probably put fear, overwhelm, guilt, and anxiety. Those are the ones I see the most of, that people have them there, but they don't really even know what they feel like. And when you can teach them to notice the second they pop up and to pause and just sit with them, that's kind of where the power is. They can then look at what thoughts are causing it once they realize what's happening. And even just sitting with those emotions and actually, I like to say, allowing them and experiencing them, that's what softens them. Whereas, and one of you mentioned this earlier, this idea of what we resist grows. And that's a very common mindfulness theme as well. And so if you can notice what's happening and connect with it, and I often have people do it's a mindfulness exercise of just like describing it and being in that moment. I was talking with a client this week who, when they get the piece of paper that has all the complaints, and it just immediately sends you into a tailspin, and your chest feels this way and your throat feels this way, and just identifying, wow, this is how I feel because of this piece of paper in front of me. You're not even in the room with the patient yet. It's all of the story that brought up. And realizing, the more advanced work is to realize that the paper is neutral. But to start, you have to notice it, and you have to see what's happening, and you have to see how much power you're giving just to that piece of paper. And, maybe someday we can change the fact that the patient comes in with 12 complaints and you have a 15-minute appointment. But right now, that's what's there. And just this idea that it really is a piece of paper with 12 complaints on it. And it's a certain time of day, and noticing and getting in touch with that. And that pause, you can notice what's happening. And the other thing that I find with so many physicians is they don't even breathe. So they just go into their reaction. And so pausing and taking a deep breath, and like that changes your whole neural connections and creates a little bit of space. And it's funny, Lida uses the word conscious, and I use the word intention all the time. And it's really the same thing. But being purposeful and just saying like, wow, this is what's happening. And, what's in my control and what's not, and what do I want to control of what's in my control? How do I want to show up for this piece of paper with 12 complaints? And I know it's funny because even as I talk about it, I still feel something in the back of my throat, and I've done so much work on it, right? And I'm like, okay, no, it's a piece of paper. And yet I can immediately still feel a little bit of that sense of, it's, anxiety, dread, guilt, all the things, right? Because I should be excited, and I spent so long getting here to do this, and yet it has so much other stuff attached. So for me, it's this opportunity to take a pause and a deep breath. And it doesn't have to be long or hard. I think that's the other thing. I remember feeling like I couldn't, I was so behind, or so much this or so much that I couldn't even give myself the space to do that. And so just realizing that deep breath really doesn't take more than a second. And if you can take 3 of them, you feel completely different. And it is something that's in your power. I see so many physicians who, even when they're just talking about it, they can't breathe. They just keep going and going and going. And so this, chance to really use the breath as a tool. And in some ways it sounds a little hokey, and yet it changes everything in my mind. And that pause and the breath, it's like, wow, actually I'm a human too. And it connects you with your humanity. And I think this intention, if you can have compassion as your intention, and I think as physicians, we're so well trained to that, but we forget to include ourselves. And so it's the compassion for yourself, the compassion for the patient too, and the compassion for me right now, for the whole world, and like what's going on. Maybe this person who has 12 complaints, who knows their story, right? They don't know. And so maybe they were, we were telling them not to come in. So they've saved up their 12 complaints. Like, it's just compassion for everybody. But the key thing is we forget ourselves.
Yeah, Totally. Yeah, time and time again, I have my clients tell me, like, I don't have time to do that processing. And I tell them, you don't have time not to, because look at what look at what happens to you when that emotion gets in the driver's seat. And this is why I put obligation on my list, because I think this is actually really huge for physicians, because something happens, we start running a little bit behind. Then we feel obligated to compensate in the next visit, right? We feel obligated to do whatever the patient wants us to do. We feel obligated to tackle the 12 complaint versus maybe just dealing with 2 of them today, and I think it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And, you mix in a little bit of guilt there too, and it just becomes this vicious kind of combination of emotions. And when I look at the actions that I take when I'm feeling that emotion, I feel like, all it does is snowball my day even further out of my control. It makes my career feel like it's even further out of my control. It makes, it feel like the job is utterly impossible and I'm never going to get anything done and I'm never going to be ahead and I'm never going to get caught up ever again. My brain is constantly spinning through all of these things. So what do? I'm less attentive to my patients. I'm less likely to chart when I'm in the visit. I'm less likely to get that referral letter done, that consult note, that anything. And I think this really applies to anybody, not even physicians, right? Look at what you do when you are experiencing these kind of emotions. Most likely, you're adding to your mental to-do list. You are overcompensating. You're saying a whole bunch of negative things about yourself. And usually all that stuff is slowing you down. So Ellie wrote, you don't have time not to emotionally process. And yes, that's it, guys. You don't have time not to do this.
And not to take a deep breath, right?
Yeah. In fact, you will be so much more efficient if you do this.
Yeah. And even sometimes these thoughts like, I can't do it, or it's too much, that just fuels you right into, then you can't do it, and it is too much. And it's not to say that it isn't an unreasonable expectation, but would we tell our kids that if they said, they couldn't do it? No, we would encourage them to try and say, well, just do your best. And that's another thought that I find so helpful, is like, just do your best. All you can do is your best in that moment. And yet it's partly the perfectionism too, right? Our best is not going to be good enough and it's not doable. And so we just spin and spin and spin and spin. And so creating space to see that the spin is happening, I think that's where, for me, the mindfulness piece really comes into play around burnout, is when you can notice it, that's when you can do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Lida, do you want to add? I know you get the crackle when you're on, but do you want to add anything on that topic? It seems to be less when you're talking.
Yeah, this is great. This is a great topic. I think, in addition to the breathing, I think the breathing anchors us, to ourselves and our existence in this world and reality. And I think that's awesome. And absolutely, that's like, I feel like that is number one. And in addition, what I talk to my clients about is switch it to, what am I grateful for? As soon as you feel that anxiety, because the shift from and we know exactly where in the brain all of these things light up, the dorsal-raphe nucleus, it lights up, where it's like fight or flight, oh my god, and the amygdala, and executive function in the prefrontal cortex shuts down. And so we've shown that if we can switch it to a positive psychology mentality, then that also it switches to the prefrontal cortex, and the amygdala kind of shuts down. So that's been shown to be an effective thing. So I've employed that in my practice, and it helps a lot to really just shut down the fear and like bring out the the gratitude and the love, and love for yourself. We are just not in that realm of even thinking, what have I done right now or today or with this patient that I'm getting this paper from that's been so good? How have I helped them? How can I celebrate myself for what I've done for this individual? And I've potentially changed the life course into a very positive direction as a physician, which we're all there. That's what we want for our patients. And that's a very important piece that I see. It switches people from that anxious, afraid state and guilt-driven state to having love for myself, having love for what I've done for a patient. And, of course, when you get an appreciation letter from a, patient, that's why it's like, oh, yes. But those, don't come very often. I wish they would come more often instead of like HCAPS, which is like, the questionnaire doesn't even make sense. But you kind of have to create those appreciation letters for yourself. And yeah, that's one of the things I do.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Okay, I'm going to meet you again. Hear your crackle.
Can I add something, Anna? I just wanted to bring up that there may be some people who are so burnt out that they can't get to gratitude and appreciation. And for those people, I want to throw out that I like to think of like bridge steps or a step ladder. So if you can just get to neutral, someday you'll be able to get back to the gratitude. But I do feel like some people just say, well, that's not possible. And to offer that you can, it's not, we don't go from A to Z in one step, and we didn't become a doctor in one day, and we didn't get burnt out in one day. So realizing that, if you can get it to neutral rather than misery, that is still progress for sure. And so I just didn't want anyone who was listening to feel discouraged. I sometimes find myself when I maybe even on Facebook, or you're hearing everyone telling these amazing stories, and it's like, well, could I get there? Or what if I can't get there? Or what if it doesn't work for me? So I just don't want anyone who's listening to also feel discouraged by that. I think for many people, it snaps them right too. And many people can grab onto that. I think what you brought up about the love, like we can often connect immediately to love for ourselves, and maybe not love for the patient, but love for compassion for the patient, or love for the world is what I like to just sort of throw out there. Because I am a huge fan of positive psychology. And then there are some days where I'm like, enough already. I just need to feel bad. And I some days can't give up on it. So if there's anyone listening who some days can't give up on it, it's okay. There will be a day that you'll get there, and it's amazing. And I do agree, it lights up that part of the amygdala, and whatever helps you get there. So I just wanted to offer that.
I love that you said that. I did a live actually just in my little Facebook group a couple days ago about how I was just like, I'm just feeling the feelings. And I just want to remind you guys, it's okay. I don't know. Can you see that? Okay, maybe a little bit. But so this is how I like to think about a human emotion, right? We experience them in waves. And so when we're up here at this like 10 out of 10 peak of the emotion, is a really hard time to try to do that work to find the place where like we can find love or gratitude. And so that's why this mindful going inward, I like to think about it as getting out of your brain and going into your physical body. And some people really struggle to figure out like, what does it feel like to feel sad? What does it feel like to feel overwhelmed? What is that sensation like in my body? But most people can at least go to the place where they're like, I can feel the chair I'm sitting on. I can feel the ground underneath my feet. I can hear what's happening in the room around me. I can, see various things with my eyes. I can smell something. I can taste something. And so even if that's all you can do is go into your senses, you're still going into your physical body and getting out of your brain, which is a beautiful technique for emotional processing, so that the overwhelm is up here at 10 out of 10, and then suddenly it's down at like 3 or 4. And then you can start to ask yourself these questions like, but what else am I grateful for? Like, what else is happening in my world that's okay right now? Like, what am I in control of in this moment? Like, any of these things that we can use to kind of ground ourselves, I think is so helpful if you're stuck in that emotion and you're just like, where the hell do I go from here? Okay, so I was wondering if you guys have seen this coming up, because I definitely see a big component of burnout being these sort of the scarcity mindset or scarcity thoughts. And I think we've touched on this a little bit, but I'm just curious how that's come up for you guys in your coaching practice and what your thoughts are on how that relates to this burnout and overwhelm and all of these kind of things that we're talking about.
Do you want to go first, Lida, this time? Or I'm happy to go first too, but if you want to.
Oh, no, Go for it, Jessie.
Okay.
I was just wanted to offer.
I have to unmute her every time and mute her, but it is better when you talk, Lida. It's just when you don't talk, it crackles.
I think scarcity is a huge issue for physicians, and probably for the world, but for physicians in particular. And it's scarcity of everything. And we were trained to think about scarcity in medical school and residency. And I go back to like scarcity of bathroom time and scarcity of food and scarcity of sleep and scarcity of knowledge and scarcity of resources. And so we have this negativity bias. And we also have, you mentioned this earlier, but the catastrophizing, like those are our natural go-tos. And just when we notice and appreciate that, it can change our experience of it. And scarcity plays into all of those as well. And so for me, and when I work with clients around scarcity, I like to help people notice abundance. And that's where I have people just start to train themselves to notice where they do. For a lot of physicians, control is an issue of scarcity. And so it's like, where do you have control? And it might be what you mentioned this earlier, I think, what time you get up, what time you go to sleep, what you eat, how you drive to work. And this idea that we have more control than we think, we just don't notice it. We notice all the ways in which we don't have control. And so that's the scarcity mindset. We notice all the time we don't have. We notice all the resources we don't have. And if you think about how our physician minds are trained, I'm a primary care pediatrician, right? I'm trained to look at the perfectly healthy child who has a beautiful life and figure out the one thing that's wrong with them. And so I'm always looking at what's wrong. And my family teases me because I look at them and I'm like, what is that thing on your face? And what about this? And, I'm always noticing the one thing. So we're just trained rightfully to see things from a place of scarcity. And if you think about all the struggles that I see bother so many physicians and bothered me too, is like scarcity of vacation time. It's scarcity of time with our family. We look at everything from that angle, and it turns out that just colors our view of the world. And so if you're thinking about like half glass full or half glass empty, someone was talking about, well, a glass is refillable. And that is something that a physician just doesn't think about. It really resonated with me. I was like, oh, it doesn't even matter if it's half full or half empty. You could just get more water, right? But we don't see it that way. And so I think when we notice how much that's impacting our experience, right? Because you're in the room, I would say, like, if you think about this 15-minute visit, right? You're in the room for 15 minutes. What can you do in 15 minutes? And instead, we're thinking about all that we can't do and all of the time we don't have. And so just with intention, deciding that you're going to start to train your brain to see the world from a less scarce place, I think is really powerful work.
I mean, how many physicians take their vacation and are already experiencing anxiety about going back to work by like day 3 of their vacation, right? It's like we take so much away from ourselves when we're focused on that place. We're getting close to needing to finish up here because I apologize. I have to disappear and coach at 3. But Lida, do you want to pop on and say anything from your perspective about that?
Yeah, sure. This is something I learned having a baby, my first baby who's now 12. I made that intention, that conscious decision that when I come home from medical school every day from the hours of 4 p.m. until 7:30 p.m. when she went to bed, I am with her and with her only. I didn't have technology on me. I had nothing. Like, I was with her. I was present. And it was the best decision I made. And, she's the best thing that happened to me because it made me very conscious about my, disciplined self. Like, I wake up at 5 a.m. I do these things. I get there and, I guess the control thing that you guys are talking about. Now I'm thinking about that. I'm like, oh, that's what I was doing really at that time. But that presence is extremely important. Even if you have 15 minutes with a patient, if you have presence, then the patient doesn't feel like they're being chipped of whatever time. You don't feel like there's not enough time because you're there with them. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful way of just pointing out that the action can look the exact same, but the emotion fueling it can be so different, right? It's like on the outside, my life doesn't look that different from when I was burned out, but I believe so many different things. I believe I'm choosing my life. I remind myself when I come to work, like I'm here because I want to be here. I chose this life. So, okay, ladies, so I want to wrap up, but I would really love it if you two would both share what the best way is for people to reach you if they want to learn more about your work. Maybe, Jessie, I'll get you to go first, and then I'll unmute Lida again here at the end.
Perfect. You can reach me at Pause and Presence Coaching, and the website is just jessiemahoney.md.com. Jessie with an IE. I think you can see it on the screen, but so jessiemahoney.md.com, and you can contact me there if you're interested in one-on-one coaching. I'm also upcoming in a week and a half starting group coaching on what I call mindful connections, because for so many of us, our relationships play into these struggles and how we interact with other people, and it can increase our burnout, or our burnout is impacting our relationships. And so that group's going to be specifically focused on relationships. So I coach on relationships and a lot on career transitions and burnout and parenting and lots of other things. But so I just wanted to throw that out there. If anyone's really struggling with challenging relationships, it's something I love to work on, and it impacts the rest of our lives and our careers as well. So
really,
you can reach me.
Okay, Lida, tell everybody where they can reach you, or if you're even going to be coaching anymore because you've got a baby coming any day now. Are you taking a little break?
No, I'm okay. This is something that brings me so much joy and fulfillment. I love to hear from people. So my website is consciousphysician.org, and that's the best place to find me. My email, you can PM me on Facebook, Lida Fatemi, and my email address is also lidafatemi@consciousphysician.org.
Love it. Well, thanks everybody who joined us here today. Sorry, I'm going to try and mute you again, Lida, just because you got the crackles. Sorry about the crackles. If anybody has follow-up questions or wants to know anything more about how to use mindful approaches to overcome burnout, feel free to reach out to any of us. And I hope everybody has a lovely Saturday. Okay.